My mom slept with my fiancé the night before our wedding. My reaction was unforgettable. My name is Elena Carter, and I'm 28 years old. Until 11 months ago, I believed that trust was the foundation of every meaningful relationship. I was a senior brand manager at a major cosmetics company in downtown Chicago, pulling in a six-figure salary that afforded me a stunning Lincoln Park apartment with lake views. My life looked picture-perfect from the outside, and honestly, it felt that way too. I was 3 days away from marrying Connor Williams, the man I'd been planning to spend forever with. Connor, 30, worked as a wealth management advisor at one of those prestigious firms in the Loop. He was everything a woman could want, charming, successful, and he made me laugh until my sides hurt. We'd met at a charity gala in spring of 2023, and within 8 months, I knew he was the one. He fit seamlessly into my world, joining family barbecues and holiday traditions like he'd always belonged. But the person I trusted most wasn't Connor. It was my mother, Caroline Carter. At 54, she'd built an empire as Chicago's most sought-after event planner, orchestrating weddings for politicians, celebrities, and old money families across the North Shore. For 28 years, she'd been my best friend, my confidant, my role model. When I brought Connor home 18 months ago, she welcomed him with open arms, constantly telling me how lucky I was to find such a wonderful man. My parents, Caroline and William, had been married for 32 years. They were my gold standard for what love should look like, still holding hands at dinner, still making each other laugh, still choosing each other every single day. Dad adored Connor, often joking that he was finally getting the son he'd always wanted. Our wedding was set for Saturday evening at the Palmer House Hilton, with a reception in the Empire Room overlooking State Street. 250 guests. A year of planning every detail, from the Chicago-style deep dish appetizers during cocktail hour to the jazz quartet that would play our first dance. My college roommate, Natalie, was my maid of honor, and Connor's younger brother was his best man. The rehearsal dinner was booked at Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse, and our honeymoon flights to the French Riviera were confirmed. The night before our wedding, I was staying at the Palmer House with my mother, going over last-minute details while my bridesmaids handled final preparations downtown. Dad and Connor were at the Fairmorn across town, following the tradition of not seeing each other before the ceremony. Mom and I had ordered champagne and were sitting in my suite, reviewing the timeline for the next day. She was helping me organize the wedding favors, small boxes of Garrett popcorn with custom labels, and making sure all our vendors had the right contact information. Everything felt magical. Around 11:30 that night, Mom excused herself to take what she said was an urgent call from our florist about a delivery issue. She stepped onto the balcony, leaving her iPhone on the coffee table beside her half-empty champagne flute. I wasn't trying to snoop. I swear I wasn't. But when a text notification lit up her screen, I glanced over instinctively. What I saw destroyed everything I thought I knew about the two people I trusted most in this world. The message was from Connor, sent at 11:27 p.m. It read, "Bev, tonight was incredible. I can't stop thinking about how you felt in my arms. Tomorrow's going to be torture, pretending in front of everyone. Can't wait to touch you again." Attached was a photo that left absolutely no room for doubt. My mother and my fiancé, together in what was clearly a hotel room, taken just hours earlier. I sat there, staring at that screen, feeling like someone had just punched all the air out of my lungs. My hands started trembling, but somehow my mind became crystal clear. This wasn't some drunken mistake or moment of weakness. The timestamp on that photo showed it was taken at 10:45 p.m., while I was at my bachelorette dinner at the Purple Pig, toasting to my future with my bridesmaids, talking about love and trust and forever. When Mom came back from her call, I'd already taken several screenshots with my own phone. 5 years in corporate marketing had taught me that documentation was everything. I managed to keep my voice steady as I told her I was exhausted and needed beauty sleep before the big day. She kissed my forehead, actually kissed my forehead, and said, "Get some rest, sweetheart. Tomorrow is going to be the most beautiful day of your life." The audacity was breathtaking. After she left for her own room, I sat on the edge of that king-sized bed and let the full weight of the betrayal wash over me. I thought about all the signs I'd missed. Connor's mysterious client dinners that seemed to happen more frequently. Mom's sudden interest in expanding her business network with evening events. The way they'd started having private conversations at family gatherings. The inside jokes that excluded everyone else. I'd dismissed every red flag because I trusted them completely. But here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart. It clarifies your vision. Suddenly, I could see everything with perfect, devastating clarity. They weren't planning to confess. They were going to let me walk down that aisle tomorrow, completely unaware, while they shared knowing looks across the altar. Instead of calling off the wedding or confronting them in a rage, I made a decision that would define everything that followed. I was going to give them exactly what they deserved, the truth, delivered in the most public way possible. I had 18 hours to plan the perfect campaign. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I did what I do best. I strategized. First, I uploaded all the screenshots to a secure cloud server. Then I built a simple website displaying the photos and text messages, hosted on a server that could handle massive traffic. I created a QR code that would direct people to this site, designed to look like it might link to our wedding photos or a digital guestbook. Using the hotel's business center at 3 a.m., I printed 300 small cards with a QR code and an elegant message, scanned for an exclusive surprise from the bride and groom. They looked professional, exactly the kind of modern touch couples include in their wedding programs. Next, I called my attorney, Diana Rodriguez. Despite it being nearly 4 a.m., she answered on the second ring. Diana had handled my employment contracts and condo purchase, and I trusted her completely. "Elena," she said after I explained everything, "I'm heartbroken this happened to you, but I'm impressed by how clearly you're thinking. What you're planning is completely legal. It's your evidence, your wedding, your truth to tell." She offered to attend as my legal observer, positioning herself among the guests in case things got complicated. "Sometimes," she said, "the truth is the most powerful weapon you have." When morning came, I felt surprisingly calm. I got my hair and makeup done, slipped into my custom Vera Wang gown, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back appeared serene, composed, ready. I'd spent years building campaigns under impossible deadlines, managing crisis communications, delivering results when everything was on the line. Today would be the ultimate test of those skills. At the Palmer House, everything proceeded exactly as planned. The flowers were stunning, white orchids and roses everywhere. The jazz quartet was warming up. Guests were arriving in their finest attire, chatting about the beautiful venue and perfect October weather. Dad looked distinguished in his black tuxedo, completely unaware that his world was about to implode. Mom was playing her role perfectly, the proud event planner mother, greeting guests and making small talk. Connor arrived looking handsome in his tailored Tom Ford suit, the picture of a nervous but excited groom. He took my hands during our private moment before the ceremony and whispered, "You look absolutely breathtaking, Elena. I can't wait to call you my wife." The performance was Oscar-worthy. Less than 12 hours earlier, he'd been in bed with my mother, and now he was standing there ready to pledge eternal love and fidelity in front of God and everyone we knew. But I was ready too. I had my own performance to give. As guests took their seats in the Empire Room, I could see my mother in the front row, wearing an elegant navy Chanel dress and the kind of radiant smile that had fooled me my entire life. She caught my eye and mouthed, "I love you, sweetheart." The same words she'd whispered when tucking me in as a child. Father Murphy began the ceremony with traditional opening words, and I could feel the attention of 250 guests focused on Connor and me. The attendees included my entire extended family from both coasts, Connor's relatives from Texas, colleagues from our respective companies, and friends we'd made over the years. During the opening remarks, I discreetly signaled Amanda, our wedding coordinator. Amanda had coordinated hundreds of high-end Chicago weddings and was known for her professionalism and discretion. I'd told her the cards were a special surprise element, and she'd agreed to distribute them quietly during the first part of the ceremony. I watched carefully as Amanda moved through the rows, handing cards to small groups of guests. My Uncle Robert from Milwaukee scanned his first, and I saw his expression change from curiosity to confusion to absolute shock. My college friend Maria looked at her phone and gasped audibly. My boss, Dr. Stevens, went pale and showed his screen to his wife, who covered her mouth in horror. The ripple effect was mesmerizing to watch. Within minutes, nearly every guest had their phone out, and the atmosphere began shifting dramatically. Urgent whispered conversations started. Shocked expressions spread across faces. People were discreetly showing their screens to others who hadn't received cards yet. The evidence was spreading through the congregation like wildfire. But the ceremony continued. Father Murphy was delivering his homily about love, commitment, and the sacred bonds of marriage when I noticed Connor's grandmother showing her phone to his mother, who let out a small cry before burying her face in her hands. Dad was sitting in the front row, and when my cousin handed him a card, I watched him scan it with the same curious smile he'd worn moments before. The smile vanished instantly, replaced by an expression of devastation and rage I'd never seen before. Connor was still facing forward, focused on the priest's words about sacred vows and lifelong fidelity. He hadn't noticed the growing chaos behind him yet. Mom was beginning to look uncomfortable as she observed people around her checking their phones and whispering frantically to each other. The moment I'd been waiting for was approaching. Father Murphy reached the part where he asks if anyone objects to the union. If any person can show just cause why Elena and Connor may not be joined together in holy matrimony, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. I stepped forward and gently took the microphone. The ballroom fell completely silent. Yes, I said, my voice steady and clear, carrying across the hushed Empire room. I have something to say. Connor turned to face me, and I watched the exact moment when he realized something was catastrophically wrong. His face went from confusion to recognition to pure terror as he noticed the expressions of the guests behind him. Mom half rose from her seat, her face now white with panic as she understood that her secret was no longer secret. I loved you, Connor, I said, speaking directly to him while 250 people hung on every word. I loved you with everything I had. I trusted you with my future, my heart, and my family. I turned to face my mother. And Mom, I looked up to you my entire life. You were my role model, my confidant, the woman who taught me about strength and integrity and what it means to be a good person. The ballroom was so quiet you could hear the traffic on State Street below. Even the children had stopped moving. But the deepest betrayal demands the highest accountability, I continued, my voice still calm but carrying the full weight of my pain and fury. Last night, I discovered that the two people I trusted most in the world have been lying to me, deceiving me, and planning to let me walk down this aisle completely unaware of their betrayal. Connor tried to speak, but no words came out. Mom was now standing, her hands shaking as she tried to figure out how to salvage the situation. Dad was also on his feet, not from panic, but from rage, finally understanding why his wife had been so distant and secretive lately. The evidence is clear and undeniable, I said, gesturing to the congregation where nearly everyone was now holding their phones, having seen the explicit messages and photos that proved the affair beyond any doubt. And since both of you chose to make a mockery of this sacred ceremony, I thought it was only fitting that the truth be revealed in the same public forum where you planned to complete your deception. The proof was there for everyone to see, irrefutable, time-stamped, devastating in its clarity. This wedding is over, I announced. And so are both of our relationships. The chaos that erupted was unlike anything I'd ever witnessed. Guests were shouting questions. Connor was stammering denials that no one believed. Mom was sobbing hysterically. Dad was pushing through the crowd, not to reach me, but to confront his wife of 32 years. But I was already walking down the aisle, my head held high, leaving behind the two people who had destroyed everything I thought I knew about love and trust. I walked out of the Palmer house and into the crisp October air, feeling something I hadn't expected, liberation. Behind me, I could hear the chaos continuing to unfold, Connor pleading for explanations, Mom sobbing uncontrollably, Dad's voice rising above the din as he confronted his wife. My maid of honor, Natalie, caught up with me outside the hotel. Elena, oh my God, she said, still processing what had happened. I can't believe they did that to you. How are you even functioning right now? I looked at her and realized that for the first time in months, I felt completely honest about my situation. I'm better than I've been in a long time, I told her. The truth has a way of setting you free, even when it destroys everything you thought you knew. Within hours, the story had spread far beyond the walls of the Palmer house. Several guests had shared the evidence on social media, and by Sunday evening, #Chicago wedding scandal was trending across multiple platforms. Local Chicago news stations picked it up by Monday morning, and by Tuesday, I was fielding calls from national media outlets. I declined most interview requests but spoke with one reporter from the Chicago Tribune who'd covered business stories involving my company. I kept my comments brief and dignified. I believe in truth and accountability. People have the right to know who they're really dealing with, especially when it comes to matters of trust and family. The professional consequences were swift and devastating. Connor's wealth management firm terminated his employment within a week. In an industry built entirely on trust and fiduciary responsibility, having him associated with their brand was considered toxic. Mom's event planning business suffered even more dramatically. In Chicago's tight-knit social scene, where reputation is everything, her career was essentially over overnight. Major clients cancelled their contracts, and her business partner of 12 years dissolved their partnership. The Carterg's event planning empire she'd spent decades building crumbled in a matter of days. Dad filed for divorce within 2 weeks. After 32 years of marriage, he told me the public humiliation and violation of trust were unforgivable. I might have been able to work through a private affair, he said during one of our long conversations. But the fact that she was willing to destroy her own daughter's life, that she planned to let you marry him knowing what they'd done, that's something I can never get past. The legal proceedings were handled efficiently by Diana Rodriguez. Since the marriage had never been legally completed, there were no divorce proceedings necessary. But there were significant financial matters to resolve, and Diana negotiated settlements that covered most of my losses. 6 months later, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I accepted a position as Chief Marketing Officer at a biotech startup in Austin, Texas. The opportunity came through a professional connection, and the timing felt perfect. I needed a fresh start, somewhere far from the whispers and stares that still followed me around Chicago. Austin offered me equity in a promising company working on breakthrough Alzheimer's treatments, plus the chance to build something meaningful from the ground up. The work was challenging, purposeful, and gave me the opportunity to help develop therapies that could genuinely change lives. Before leaving Chicago, I had one final conversation with my mother. She'd been trying to reach me for months, but I'd refused her calls. Finally, she appeared at my Lincoln Park apartment on a snowy February morning, looking older and more broken than I'd ever seen her. "Elena," she said, standing in my doorway, "I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know how sorry I am. I destroyed everything that mattered to me, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I looked at this woman who had been my hero for 28 years, and I felt something I hadn't expected: pity. "Mom," I said, "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying this anger is exhausting, and I have better things to do with my life." A year and a half later, I'm settled in Austin, working on projects that could genuinely help people suffering from devastating diseases. I'm surrounded by colleagues who know nothing about my past except what I choose to share. I've started dating again, slowly, carefully, with new wisdom about reading people and recognizing warning signs. I heard through Dad that Connor moved back to Dallas to work for his family's small accounting firm, and that Mom took a part-time job at a furniture store in Schaumburg. Their affair ended almost immediately after the wedding incident, apparently unable to survive the harsh light of public scrutiny and mutual blame. The scandal that brought them together ultimately destroyed them both. The story of my wedding day revelation became legendary in Chicago social circles, but I rarely think about it anymore. I've moved on to bigger and better things, and the betrayal that once felt like the end of the world turned out to be the beginning of a more authentic life. Sometimes the most devastating setbacks become the greatest opportunities for growth and renewal. The truth, no matter how painful, is always better than living a lie. And sometimes, the perfect revenge is simply living well.